Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. This is my everything in bloom on the 8th, so no spikes, no buds, no ones that have gone over and sneaking them in. It's just things that are actually open at this point in time of the month. There's more than I expected. We'll see how we get on. I'm going to start with things that I can get at without moving plants around. This dendrobium is lasting well. This is a primary cross. It's infundibulum crossed with lowii. Not my spike as such. It was had a bloom or two open when I got it and a bud that opened after. It's lasting well. Lovely colours. I don't know how good the filming is going to be today. The light is appalling. It's a drizzly, dull, typical English summer day. But I'll see what I can do. But I'm well pleased with these blooms. They're lasting well, coming on nicely. This is Dendrobium rhodostictum, and I do believe there are finally signs of this bloom fading. It's still looking good, and I'm still reasonably confident that that latest new growth is going to actually produce a bloom, or maybe more than one. I don't actually know whether this produces more than one, but on a plant this size, this is its first blooming, and it's lasted incredibly well. I think I'll add some pop-ups to this one. In some cases, like this one, like the date that bloom actually opened, just to show how long lasting this actually is. And if I can twist this one round, I'm classing this as opened, even though I don't believe that's fully opened. This is another Latoria type. This is Roy Tokunaga White Knight, and the colours on the inside of that are absolutely gorgeous. That's almost black. That's the deepest of purples. And that's not fully open, I believe, but as it's a first time bloomer for me, I don't really know what it's supposed to look like. That might be what it does look like, I don't know. It may open more than that. We'll have to wait and see. But there's another two opening round here as well, and another 3 buds to come. And if this is anything like I know about Latorias, this is going to be open a long time. Really looking forward to that. So we'll see how that one goes. The only other dendrobium I've got out at the moment is this one, which is sneaking in some late blooms, basically. You know, this is a late spring bloomer, not a midsummer bloomer, but this is Dendrobium hercoglossum, and it's just got this one spike, and like I say, these are late blooms. It's not typical of the way the plant blooms at all, but you know, when you get mature plants, they can do odd things. So delicate little blooms on a dull day like this, they don't light up as well as they should do. So that's the dendrobiums. And the phalaenopsis I've got open at this time. There's this one, which is Sweet Memory. That did have 3 blooms, and when one of them dropped off, I thought, they didn't last very long, and then I realised I'd actually broken it. So it did have 3, down to 2, thanks to an accident of moving plants around when they're all squashed up. It happens. Lovely patterns on that, and fragrant too. Nice blooms. The other phalaenopsis that are out are no IDs, but I don't need a name with blooms like that. I just don't. This is probably one of my favourite phalaenopsis because of its simplicity. It's just lovely depth of colour, incredibly delicate veining towards the outside of the 2 petals and sepals, come to think of it, and a lovely deep red in the lip with patterning and that delicate edge. Looks like it's backlit. And its baby brothers sat behind, another no ID, mini phalaenopsis this time, lovely small tidy plant, and nice delicate blooms again with that pale edge. And the big blousy one isn't. It's big, yes, but it's not blousy, it's delicate. Colours on this, for me, are just lovely. When I did the painting video, this was something along the lines I thought I might have a go at. And then you start looking at the lip, and whether you're a painter or a drawer, that's not funny. That is incredibly complex in its shape, the curves, the amount of shading and depth that would be required to actually portray that lip properly would be incredibly difficult. So it put me off Phalaenopsis straight away. Nonetheless, the colours would be nice. Probably the biggest watercolour challenge, which I will attempt one day, is white blooms, because the paper's white. It's all got to be done with delicate shading and things, which I'm not sure I'm good enough to attempt yet. But yeah, doing well, good spike, lovely blooms. The Disa cuensis is still hanging in there. I'm surprised. I didn't think Disa blooms lasted this long, but it's lasting well. And these are variable. As the plants get stronger and bigger, the flowers can get bigger and brighter in colours too. And if you look at this plant on the outside here has bloomed, but compared with the size of this plant with this spike, this is a much smaller plantlet. And as a consequence, the blooms are smaller and paler in colour. So, you know, as you develop the actual corms and get bigger and stronger ones, you get bigger and brighter blooms on the top. Quite a nice trait. Just the one at the moment, Disa cuensis, but I will get more, definitely. They are a faff, but I think it's worth it. Strictly speaking, this ought to be a tripod job, but not today. I've got other things to do. This is a Maxillaria Sophronites. Blooms on and off all the time, basically. Very pretty little flowers, lovely red, but tiny. I stick my little finger in there. Tiny. It's only got one out at the moment. Last time I looked, it actually had 3 at once. But it just blooms on and off, keeps going. Used to be on a mount, now in a pot. Now this Restrepia is having a bit of a go at the moment. It's actually got one out round here, got another one out here, and another one here. But looking over the plant, I've got a bud here, one here, one here, another one here, another one here, another one here, another one here, and another. Oh, that one's just gone rather than just coming. So this one's having a little bit of a flush at the moment, which is good because I mean it's a beautiful colour. Again, it needs a tripod to see it properly, but yeah, this one's doing well. And this one is, I've forgotten, is this the Antinifera? Yeah, Restrepia Antinifera Hemsleyanna when it's at home. It's a good plant, grows well, blooms quite frequently, again on and off, but at the moment, you know, in a week's time, that's probably going to have a dozen blooms out, which will look a lot more impressive than just the odd 1 or 2, which is what it's been doing so far this year. But coming on, this is my only other Restrepia out in bloom at the moment. It's my largest Restrepia bloom. That is quite a large bloom as Restrepias go, and that's Howlisiae. It's got another bud coming round here, but unlike some other Restrepias, this is a single bloom per growth. A lot of the others can produce multiple blooms, so it grows a new growth, like this one, and then the bloom comes out from underneath the leaf, followed by another one, and you know, up to 5, maybe even 6 on some of them, whereas this one only ever does 1. Probably compensating for the sheer size of them as Restrepias go. But yeah, so one out at the moment, that one's been out a little while. I'll give it its due, they do last quite well compared with my others, and another one just forming round here, so that one will follow on. So those are the only 2 Restrepias out at the moment. As far as the Vandas are concerned, that bloom is in full flood at the moment. I think its last bud, the one on the right of the shot, has only just opened. But yeah, the lower blooms are getting up to their full size now. I'm not going to get these down because they're a bit of a faff. So there's that one. I'll do pop-ups, I can never remember the names. And this spike here is showing signs of going over. But it is its second spike this year, so I'm sort of pleased. And the species one up here, I've said all along it's got 4 spikes, but I think I'm going to end up with 3 because it really looks like one of them is going to totally blast and one of them is going to lose half its buds. The first 2 spikes have opened nicely. You know, this is a species, Vanda roblingiana, but it's a lousy plant with a rubbish root system, and I just cannot get it hydrated sufficiently, and I think that's why it can't support 4 spikes. It's doing what it can, you know, with the resources it's got, which is just not very good. If I can't get a decent root system on this, it's just never going to be a good plant. It's difficult to know what to do. It's grown 1 new root up the top there out of the stem. Now if I had half a dozen of those, I could unmount it, get it off the piece of wood and get rid of these old tatty roots. But that is nowhere near a good enough root system for a Vanda. It needs better. And it's difficult to know how to get it to grow more roots. You know, you keep it hydrated the best you can, keep it fed and see what it does. But yeah, well, at least the 2 first spikes to open have done well, so that's doing okay. And both of my Psychopsis are open at the same time at the moment. This is a deformed bud. It's a very, very weak plant, struggling desperately. But you know, you can see the wings on this should be a lot bigger, and they shouldn't be curled like that. The lips open nicely, and the centre part of the plant. 2 of the antennae have pushed up, the other one's got a curl on it, so it's a bit of a deformed bloom, but given that the last few buds actually blasted, at least this one's opened. The other Psychopsis, that's Mendenhall, Psychopsis Mendenhall, and this one is Papilio, which is one of the actual species, but it's the alba form. This just literally opened yesterday. This plant is recovering quite nicely now. It's building up a reasonable root system, so it's got enough strength, you know, to push out a proper bloom this time round. Alba form on Psychopsis just removes the red basically, and what's left is yellows and creams. It's not such a large bloom as some of the Psychopsis, but you know, this is an actual species, not a hybrid. But lovely colours, lovely shape, very alien-like. Quite honestly, Papilio is French for butterfly, and you have to use your imagination, but if you took the centre antennae out and look at what's left, it really does look like a butterfly. But with 3, I've never seen a butterfly with 3 antennae, but yeah, if you took that centre one out, that really would look like a butterfly. So well named. That's those 2. Now this is the last spike on Miltassia Shelob Tolkien. The other 2 spikes have gone over recently, but this one's recently opened, so these blooms will last a while. This was the weaker spike of the 3. Only 4 blooms on this one, but yeah, I'll have 4 blooms. It's been in bloom a hell of a long time, although it wasn't all one spike. It was a succession, but it's doing well. It's a nice strong plant. New growths have all bloomed. I think there's 1 still to go, so I may have another spike to follow on from this one. And while I'm there, the Miltonia Sunset, again, I think this is its last spike for a while. Just having a nose round, see if there's any more. Well, I'll be getting them out to water them in a minute. So, but yeah, I mean, recently opening this one, so you know, this one's coming on nicely. Still got some buds to go, and I do have aphids. I'm going to have to deal with this. This is something I've not had, aphids. You know, I get mealybugs and the dreaded scale, and that's about it really. Got a few fungus gnats dotted around, but the pinguiculars seem to be dealing with those. But aphids are a new sort of thing, and in large numbers they can damage your blooms and your new growths. So I'm going to have to get on and deal with these. They're the easiest thing in the world to kill. They're so fragile. I mean, you can just do that, wipe them off and squash them in your fingers. But if they get out of hand, they can start damaging blooms. So I'm going to have to deal with them. It's annoying. My whole grow room was sprayed relatively recently with the systemic. Excuse me. And in theory, a systemic fungicide or pesticide or whatever should get to all parts of the plant. But given where I'm seeing some of these aphids, perhaps the systemic doesn't get right up into the blooms, because that's where they are. And if you look at the back of this one, there's a great big aphid on the end of that petal. So I might have to deal with them separately. I don't like spraying blooms because they can stain, but then, you know, I don't want unopened buds ruined by aphids, so I'll have to see what I can do with that. I'll probably just get some alcohol on a Q-tip and just wipe them off, because that does them in. Hydrogen peroxide might be a little bit too much on buds, I'm not sure, but anyway, I will deal with those. They're a nuisance, to say the least. Now, this Prosthetia green hornet, quite honestly, only just made it into this video. All the lower buds have dropped. This one at the back will probably drop if I touch it. Yep. That leaves two, one of which is fading fast. So this is its last bloom on this spike. I have got new growths starting. One here pushing on quite nicely, and there are some others dotted around. So there will be more blooms to come, but it'll be a while off. These tend to spike when the bulbs are fully mature. So this little new growth's got to get up to that size before it's going to do this. So we're going to have a bit of a wait for the next lot, but yeah, nice brooms, quite a fragrance, but for me, I have to get quite close to smell it. It's not one of those that fills the whole grow room, but it's there and it's pleasant. Well, this is Oncostelli Wildcat Rainbow, first time bloomer for me. Quite attractive, not my best wildcat by any means, but attractive nonetheless. Lovely little green tips and delicate markings. Very few delicate markings and the purest white lip, or bottom half to the lip anyway. This is a first spike. I'm not turning the plant round at the moment. The first bloom was quite distorted. The second one round the back is perfect. This third one looks okay until you look closely. Yeah, one of the sepals is just not there. Which is what happened on the first one. So as a first time bloomer, I'm not particularly worried about that. And there's plenty more buds to come. We'll see how they go. But yeah, quite attractive. No fragrance, not that I can detect. This is my other wildcat that's just opened literally in the last few days. This is Wildcat Bobcat. And although it is simple in its bloom, for me, it's absolutely stunning. The camera will not show the depth of colour here. The petals and sepals are almost black, and they've got this lovely gold tip to the petals and sepals. And the lip is a deep burgundy with that frilly bit in the middle with the nice colorations on it. I love this plant. I just love the simplicity of a bloom that's that deep in colour. You know, with that delicate gold. Quite a bit of it on the back actually, back of the things. But yeah, don't know how long that one's going to last, but it's literally only just opened. It would be nice if it makes it till next month, because they're attractive blooms. But as I said, the camera will not render that colour properly. It is almost black. And if you look at the contrast that the camera gives, the petals and sepals are almost the same colour as the lip. Well, in the real world that I'm seeing, they are different. You know, the petals and sepals are deepest of colours, and this is not the same colour. This is a brighter but still deep burgundy. So yeah, cameras play tricks with reds more than anything. Why, I don't know. Perhaps somebody should try reprogramming the chips to be more realistic, but that's what we're stuck with. Still lovely blooms. These two Prosthetia radiata spikes seem to be lasting well, but they are on their way out now. Whoops. Those are the ones that have dropped off recently. There's another one gone. But, you know, they open sort of successively, so obviously the lower blooms are the first to go, and the ones higher up are going to last a little bit longer. But probably less than a week and they'll all be gone. But very fragrant, tidy little blooms. Emphasis on the little. These are not large, but they're delicate, lovely little purple veining on the upside down lip. So attractive flowers with good fragrance, but there's a lot of strappy plant sat behind there, you know, so that takes up a lot of space for what is quite a small bloom. But nonetheless, it has quite a few blooms. I mean, I think there was over a dozen on the spikes when they first opened, and they last quite well, and they are highly fragrant. So I put up with, you know, the space that the blooms take up, that the plants take up. But not long for this world now, but hanging in there. This is another Prosthetia species. This bloom's going, quite honestly. I shouldn't be filming this really. But at the moment, I'm losing the plant. So if I don't film this bloom, it may not be another chance. This is on its last legs. This was in the holy clay pot and doing far from well. These bulbs are badly desiccated, and I thought, well, it's not doing well in the holy clay pot, let's get it in some smaller bark so that it can stay wet longer, because that's the problem, it's just not hydrating, and it hasn't got a very good root system at all. So we'll see how it goes, but the plant's certainly not doing very well. I do have another one that's doing a lot better. See if I can reach it. Yeah. So apart from that really badly distorted growth, that growth around there is coming on nicely with new roots, as is this one. So I've still got one that's definitely going to make it. I mean, if you look at the pseudo bulbs on that, they're a lot plumper. Just ignore that totally distorted new growth. That's just how it is. As I said, I nearly lost the whole plant. It was on a mount once. But that one's going to recover. That one's okay. I'm working on that one at the moment, not very successfully, but we'll see how we go. Now this one's back on the scene again. This has been absent without leave for some time. It bloomed earlier in the year quite well, and obviously new growth had to progress and get up near maturity. This blooms when the bulbs are virtually mature, so you know, you've got to wait for that particular point in time. This has got 3 spikes on at the moment. There's another 2 buried in the jungle back there, and this is a good spike. These are fragrant, they're attractive, and what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 6 blooms on this one when they all open, and they open successively with gaps between them. So obviously, you know, when the spike goes over, this will be the first one to die, then this one, but it'll still leave good blooms at the top. So it extends the blooming period. If they all open at once, like the Oncostelli bobcat that I just showed you, wildcat bobcat, they open within a couple of days. So they will all go at the same time. So relatively, that'll be a short-lived spike, whereas this spike should last a nice long time. Lovely fragrance on this, delicate, and when the sun gets on it through the shade netting, obviously not direct sun, it is actually quite strong. It sort of fills the grow room depending on what competition there is. But yeah, I've missed this one. I'd forgotten how attractive that is. So it's a Miltonidium Peter Comp. Yeah, that's a good plant as well. I mean, it's a good strong plant. The new growths are nice and healthy. It's got a good root system. And as I said, 2 more spikes following on in the jungle. So doing well at the moment, that one. And the last one for today is the Miltoniopsis World Cup. I was thinking actually, if I'm going to paint another orchid, a Miltoniopsis might not be a bad choice. It's a relatively simplistic, flat bloom. So trying to get a 3D effect of a complex lip sort of goes out the window. That might be a nice choice to have a go at painting, is a made-up Miltoniopsis. The difficult bit on this, obviously, is the white. Especially when the white's on the very edges of the petals, because the paper's white. Obviously there's shading effects can be done, but I could make up a Miltoniopsis bloom, you know, where it's much darker near the edges of the petals. Obviously this would take a little bit of doing, but you know, that might be worth a go. I'll have a think about that. Anyway, this bloom, 3 buds, lasting well. It looked like it was going to have a 4th, but that one didn't make it. And once the plant gets going, I'm hoping to see more of these. But at the moment, these blooms are lasting well. They've been out quite a while now. Fragrant, but you need to get close. But yeah, that'll do for today then. That's my everything in bloom on the 8th. And just as I finish off like this and say thanks for dropping by and all that stuff, I'll see something else, I bet. I usually do. I usually miss one. I think today I've got the lot. Anyway, thanks for dropping by. See you next time.